The woods had always been our escape. Max, the fearless leader. Liza, the ever-curious scientist. Artem, the quiet observer with an artist's soul. And me, Sophie, the one who tried to keep everyone grounded. That afternoon, the air felt different, charged with an energy we couldn't name. We were deep in the forest, far from any marked trails, chasing the thrill of the unknown. Artem was trying to capture the dappled sunlight on his sketchbook when Liza suddenly stopped dead. She was staring at something nestled among the roots of an ancient oak tree. A stone, about the size of a fist, pulsed with a soft, ethereal blue light. It wasn't just glowing. It was breathing light. Max, naturally, was the first to approach. He knelt down, his hand hovering over it. "Whoa," was all he could manage. The air around the stone hummed, a low thrum we could feel in our bones. Liza pulled out a small multi-tool from her pocket. "Don't touch it, Max. We don't know what it is. Could be radioactive or some kind of weird fungal growth." She tried to get a reading, but her cheap compass just spun wildly. Artem sketched frantically, trying to capture the impossible light. I just stood there, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. This felt wrong. Max, ignoring Liza's warning, reached out. "Come on. It's beautiful. What's the worst that could happen?" The moment his fingertips brushed the smooth surface, the blue light exploded. It wasn't a flash. It was a wave of pure, silent energy that engulfed us completely. The world dissolved into a blinding whiteness. There was no sound, no sensation, just a feeling of being pulled apart and stitched back together in the same instant. When my vision cleared, the familiar green of our forest was gone. We were sprawled on a bed of moss that shimmered with shades of iridescent purple. Towering above us weren't oak trees, but colossal, mushroom-like flora that cast a bioluminescent glow, bathing the landscape in a perpetual twilight of soft blues and greens. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something sweet, like night-blooming jasmine. Max scrambled to his feet, a wide, incredulous grin on his face. "Okay, this is officially the coolest thing that has ever happened." Liza was already on her knees, examining the purple moss. "The cellular structure, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not plant, not fungus. It's something else entirely." Artem was speechless, his eyes wide, slowly turning in a circle, trying to absorb the impossible panorama. I pushed myself up, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Where are we? How do we get back?" The glowing stone was gone. My voice trembled a little. Max put a hand on my shoulder. "Hey, we'll figure it out. Together. First, let's figure out where here is." As we started to walk, the strangeness of this new world unfolded. Small, winged creatures that looked like a cross between hummingbirds and dragonflies flitted between the giant mushrooms, their wings leaving trails of golden dust. The ground beneath our feet was soft and spongy. Everything seemed alive, humming with that same energy from the stone. We followed a stream of what looked like liquid silver. It flowed uphill. Liza was practically vibrating with excitement, scooping some into a water bottle she had. "It's not water. It's heavier and it's cool to the touch but doesn't feel wet." Fascinating. Suddenly, a rustling in the undergrowth made us all freeze. From behind a thicket of glowing ferns, a creature emerged. It was about the size of a large dog, covered in sleek, dark fur, with 6 legs and large, intelligent eyes that glowed faintly. It tilted its head, letting out a series of soft, melodic clicks and whistles. Max instinctively took a step forward, his hands held out. "Easy there, fella." Artem, surprisingly, was the one to act. He slowly knelt down and mirrored the creature's head tilt, then whistled a soft, simple tune. The creature's ears perked up. It took a hesitant step forward, then another, until it was sniffing Artem's outstretched hand. It let out another chirp and nudged his palm before bounding back into the glowing flora. Artem looked at us, a slow smile spreading across his face. I think it was just curious. Liza was already scribbling in her notebook. Incredible, non-threatening fauna. Complex vocalizations. This place, our moment of wonder was cut short by a sound that was far less friendly. A deep, guttural roar echoed through the forest, shaking the very ground. It was a sound of primal hunger and rage. The small, winged creatures scattered in a panic. The silver stream seemed to dim for a moment. What was that? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Max pointed towards a ridge in the distance. I don't know, but it sounds big, and it's coming from that direction. We should go the other way. We didn't need any more convincing. We broke into a run, our sneakers slipping on the slick, purple moss. The roars grew louder, closer. We could hear the crashing of something massive moving through the forest behind us. We scrambled through the alien landscape, our lungs burning. Ahead, we saw a wall of crystalline rock, glittering like 1,000 diamonds. Tucked into its base was a dark opening, a cave. In there, Max yelled, pointing. We dove into the darkness just as a colossal shadow fell over the entrance. We pressed ourselves against the cold, hard walls, our breaths held tight. A massive head, reptilian and armored with thick, black plates, peered into the cave opening. Its eyes were slits of molten gold and steam hissed from its nostrils. It was easily the size of a bus. The creature sniffed the air, its huge head turning slowly. It let out another earth-shaking roar of frustration, the sound vibrating through our very skeletons. After what felt like an eternity, it moved on, its heavy footsteps receding into the distance. We stayed huddled in the dark for a long time, the only sound our own ragged breathing. Okay, Liza finally said, her voice shaky but analytical. So, there are also highly dangerous predators. Good to know. Max let out a long breath. That was too close. I was still trembling, unable to speak. The reality of our situation was crashing down on me. This wasn't just a cool adventure. This was a fight for survival. As our eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering into the cave, we noticed something. The walls weren't just rock. They were covered in intricate carvings. Artem pulled out a small flashlight from his bag and aimed its beam at the wall. The carvings depicted figures that looked vaguely human, interacting with the six-legged creatures, tending to the giant mushrooms, and fighting the massive reptile we had just seen. It's a story, Artem whispered, tracing the lines with his finger. They lived here. Maybe they still do. The carvings showed the figures holding stones that pulsed with a familiar blue light. They used them to grow the plants, to heal the sick, and to create shields of light to fight off the beast. And then we saw it. A carving that showed a circle of figures holding the stones, pointing them towards a shimmering portal in the air. Away back, hope surged through me, so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. The stones, I said, my voice finding its strength. They're the key. We need to find another one. Liza pointed to a specific part of the mural. It showed a map of the area, marking several locations with the symbol of the glowing stone. One symbol was located at the peak of a floating mountain that hung in the sky, held aloft by what looked like giant, twisting vines. There, she said, her voice filled with a new determination. That's our next move. We need to get to that mountain. Getting out of the cave was one thing, but figuring out how to reach a floating mountain was another. The base of the vines holding it up was on the other side of a vast, misty canyon. There was no bridge. For the first time since we arrived, Max looked stumped. We sat at the edge of the canyon, the scale of our task seeming impossible. It was Artem, the quiet artist, who found the solution. He had been sketching the patterns of the wind as it moved through the canyon, noticing how the updrafts were strong and consistent. He also pointed to some of the larger, kite-like leaves that had fallen from the canopy. "If the wind is strong enough," he said, looking at Max, "maybe we don't need a bridge. Maybe we can fly." It was a crazy idea, but it was the only one we had. Liza, ever the engineer, quickly calculated the surface area we'd need and the best way to rig handholds, using our belts and backpack straps. We spent hours working, turning the giant, surprisingly sturdy leaves into makeshift gliders. It was a terrifying prospect. Max, of course, volunteered to go first. He stood at the edge of the cliff, his makeshift glider held tight. "See you on the other side," he yelled with a grin, and then he jumped. For a heart-stopping second, he plunged downwards and I screamed. But then the updraft caught the leaf, and he soared upwards, gliding across the misty expanse. He landed, a bit clumsily, on the other side, and gave us a triumphant wave. One by one, we followed, our fear mixing with an exhilarating sense of freedom as we flew across the canyon. Landing on the other side felt like a huge victory. We had faced our fear and won. The path up the mountain was a winding trail that spiraled around the giant vines. The higher we climbed, the thinner the air became, but the view was breathtaking. We could see the entire glowing forest laid out below us, a tapestry of light and color. Along the path, we found more evidence of the people who came before. Small, abandoned dwellings were carved into the vines themselves, like little hobbit holes. Inside one, Artem found a small carved wooden flute. He put it to his lips and played a few notes. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, and it seemed to resonate with the air itself. As he played, small, glowing spores drifted from the mushrooms below, rising up to dance around us. It was magic. As we neared the summit, the path was blocked. A series of massive, interlocking stone rings stood in our way. In the center of each ring was a symbol, and the rings were misaligned. "It's a puzzle," Liza said, her eyes gleaming. She recognized the symbols from the cave carvings. They represented elements of this world. The six-legged creature, the silver stream, the giant mushroom, the winged insects. "It has to be a sequence," she murmured, studying the cave sketches Artem had made. The carvings showed a cycle. The insects pollinate the mushrooms. The creatures eat the fruit from the mushrooms, and their waste fertilizes the soil that feeds the silver stream. We worked together, turning the heavy stone rings. Artem recalled the order from his artistic memory. Liza deduced the logic of the ecosystem, and Max provided the muscle to move the ancient mechanism. With a final, heavy click, the symbols aligned. The rings retracted into the mountain with a grinding sound, clearing the path. The summit was a flat, circular plateau. In the very center, resting on a stone pedestal, was another glowing blue stone, identical to the one that brought us here. It pulsed with a calm, steady light. We approached it slowly, a mix of relief and awe on our faces. "We did it," Max breathed. But as he reached for the stone, a figure emerged from the shadows of the summit. It wasn't a creature. It was a person, tall and slender, draped in robes woven from the glowing flora. Their face was obscured by a hood, but their voice was clear and resonant, echoing in our minds more than our ears. "You are not of this world. That stone is not for you." We froze. We were not alone. "Who are you?" Liza asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. The figure lowered its hood. It was a being with pale, luminescent skin and large, dark eyes that held an ancient wisdom. They looked elven, but more ethereal. "I am a guardian of this place. The Ethel. This world, Lyra, is dying. The Heartstones are all that sustain it. The one you used created an imbalance. That is why the Vorlag, the beast you fled, is so agitated. The Guardian explained that the stones were connected, nodes in a network of energy that kept the world alive. By removing one, we had weakened the network, making the world vulnerable. Taking another will only hasten the end, the Guardian said, their gaze sorrowful. My heart sank. Our way home was the world's destruction. But we need to get back, I said, my voice pleading. Our world, our families. The Guardian looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of empathy in their ancient eyes. There is another way. The portal can be opened at the heart of the network, without draining a stone. But it is deep within the Vorlag's territory, a place we have not dared to tread in generations. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. A familiar, terrifying roar ripped through the air, much closer this time. The Vorlag was climbing the mountain. The Guardian's expression hardened. It was drawn to the puzzle's energy. And now, to the stone. They looked at us, then at the stone. There is no time. You must make a choice. Take the stone, save yourselves and doom Lyra, or stay and help us restore the balance, and perhaps earn your way home. The Vorlag's massive head appeared over the edge of the plateau, its golden eyes locking onto the glowing stone. It let out a triumphant roar. Max looked at me, at Liza, at Artem. I saw the conflict in his eyes. The easy way out was right there. But then I looked at the Guardian, at the beautiful, dying world around us. We had stumbled into this place, broken it without meaning to. Could we really just leave it to die? Max looked at the charging beast, then back at us. He didn't pick up the stone. Instead, he grabbed a heavy, crystalline rock from the ground. Sophie, Liza, with me. Artem, the flute. Play it. He had a crazy, desperate look in his eyes, the same look he had at the edge of the canyon. If this thing wants a fight, he yelled over the roar, let's give it one. And with that, he charged towards the monster, a wild battle cry on his lips. Our adventure had just begun. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to see what happens next in the world of Lyra, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter. See you next time.